I'm very pleased to introduce Blandine Deverlanges. She's a feminist activist. She stands against gender ideology and the sex trade. She's co-founder of WDI France, Les Amazon d'Avignon. She defends women's rights, freedom of speech, and the power of female solidarity. Through action and words, Blandine fights patriarchal violence and censorship. And thank you so much for coming on to talk to us today, and over to you.
What is happening to me is not an isolated case. It's a symptom of a wider, of a more disturbing phenomenon that concerns all women, especially feminists, who refuse to submit to the ideological demands of gender ideology. A few weeks ago, the fourth, please. A few weeks ago, an anonymous letter was sent to my school principal. I am a teacher. And the letter accused me in extremely harsh terms of being transphobic. My alleged crime, signing in 2020 an article which questions the concept of gender identity and its consequences for women's rights. We were 140 feminists, some well-known, some other-known, who signed this article. And the letter begins as follows. I am sending you this very serious email because I discovered that Blandine Deverlanges signed a transphobic and extremely violent column toward trans people in 2020. And it continues, such a position is scandalous, extremely violent, complicit in a criminal and illegal ideology. So feminism is illegal. And it goes even further. I am compared to the far right associated with activists whose political stance I don't share. And the author of the letter demands that my institution take urgent protective measures against me. In short, they are demanding I be fired. And 5, please. This letter, of course, is anonymous. It's a classic intimidation tactic. I am speaking out today because these kinds of methods are becoming widespread. It's a part of a broader campaign of harassment against gender critical feminists, a campaign that is organized, systemic, and always targets the same people. Women who dare to think differently, to defend a certain vision of feminism, rooted in reality, in materiality, in women's lived experiences as an oppressed social class. And I also speak because this letter says something about our times. It reveals how certain topics have become untouchable, how the mere idea of debating, of asking questions, of offering a critical analysis that has become suspect and even dangerous. That's where we are now. Asking questions has become subversive, and thinking differently is seen as a threat. Well, no. I refuse this logic of permanent suspicion. I reject this censorship, disguised in moral vigilance, and I refuse to remain silent. That's why I have chosen to respond publicly, to affirm my fundamental right, the right to think, to express and to debate. No intimidation will take this right away from me. Because feminism is gender critical. Let's talk now about this infamous article. Yes, I signed it. Yes, I stand by it. No, I don't apologize, because believe it or not, in a democracy, signing a column is not a crime. It's a fundamental right. So, what is this so-called scandalous text that makes me unfit for any role in education? It's a feminist text that asks, is it enough to self-declare as a woman to be considered one? A simple question that has apparently become unacceptable. And today, it's a tough thought crime. And what that column says, and what I repeat here, is that feminism by definition is a critique of gender. Gender is not a magical inner identity. Gender is a social structure of domination, a hierarchy imposed between the sexes in favor of men. And that's what we fight against, because that's what feminists do. We do not fight against people. We do not say that some lives are worthless than others. We say that women's rights as a sexually oppressed class are non-negotiable. This is not rejection, it's political lucidity. Yet, today, a new dogma prevails. Suppose gender identity would take precedence over biological sex. Personal feelings will become more real than reality itself. A man could, by simple declaration, become a woman. And women are not only expected to accept this, but to applaud, integrate, support, and validate it without question, without resistance. Well, no. I am one of those who ask questions. One of those who, like you, worry, for example, about seeing men self-identify as women and gain access to women-only spaces, women's sport competition, or official positions as women, without ever having experienced any sex-based oppression. And I ask this question: was it left for women if we erase their material reality? You see, it's not that violent. It's not even radical. It's feminist common sense, classic feminism. The feminism of Beauvoir, of Wittig, of concrete struggles. But nowadays, saying that gets you labeled as a TERF. In reality, it's a slur meant to shame any woman who dares to say that no, a man does not become a woman by declaration. It's a weapon of mass silencing. No one contradicts you. You are cancelled. TERF, transphobe, warphobe, fascist, while we are at it. And if you persist, they send a letter to your employer. It's not about discussion. It's about silencing, excluding, punishing. Well, no, I won't be silenced. Because what I defend is the very possibility of discussions, of existing politically as a woman, of thinking, of disagreeing, and of continuing to speak without risking my job. I am not transphobic. I am not hateful. I am a feminist. And as such, I refuse to let women's rights be erased. Next, I am 13, please. I am accused, I am attacked, I am insulted. This letter reveals a troubling authoritarian drift disguised as a progressive virtue. First, the political insult, the magic word that makes the powerful and the careerist shudder, TERF. TERF is the latest version of which. No need to argue anymore, just label and there you are, ready to be burnt. Then amalgamation. That sweet paranoid tune that rhythm feminism with fascism. In this delusional logic, criticizing gender means playing into the hands of the far right. As if thinking of for yourself were suspicious. As if women didn't have the right to set boundaries. As if defending women's rights was already betraying the progressive cause. One can hardly believe it. Then come guilt by association. An age-old method. You sign a text with others, no matter what you say, you will be held accountable for everything these others have said, thought, or liked on Twitter since 2012 and will ever sign in the future. It's the 2.0 version of the witch trial. You are complicit by contact, by atmosphere, by osmosis. It's convenient. It avoids discussing the substance. And last but not least, anonymity and the call for professional lynching. Anonymous campaigns aimed at getting you fired, silenced, or erased. This is not activism. This is organized harassment. It's a weapon of cowards and zealots, and it's profoundly undemocratic. But I am not the only target. These attacks go beyond my person. They target all those who dare to speak differently and refuse to recite the gender catechism, all those who believe that women have the right to exist and to say so. What has earned me this witch hunt is in reality not an article signed 5 years ago, in 2020, which in the scale of digital controversies feel like it belongs to the last century. I signed that article. I stand by it and I maintain it. But then why this letter now? Why this sudden discovery of a 5-year-old text? Is it really the article that's the problem? Or is it who I am, what I say, what I have been doing for the last 5 years, expressing myself clearly, without filters, without fear? Let me tell you plainly, if I disturb, it's because I am abolitionist of gender and sexual exploitation. And I say it loudly and clearly, with argument, with facts, with testimonies. And above all, I do not remain silent. What they reproach me is not a text, but a trajectory. They reproach me for having created the podcast, maybe you know it, Rebelles du Genre, a space where women speak out in French to share the violence they suffer because of trans activism, threats, exclusions, pressures, silencing. Stories that few want to hear, but that must still be listened to. This podcast is a valuable archive of our times when feminists must risk their job just to ask questions. These voices disturb because they break the official narrative, because they show that there is a human, social, political cost to this ideology. They also reproach me for co-founding WDI France, the French branch of Women's Declaration International, which defends women's sex-based rights, to gather women around a materialist feminism, a feminism that does not confuse sex and identity, and that continues to call a spade a spade. Women are a social class based on sex, and gender is a system of oppression that must be abolished and not celebrated. And that's not all. I also had the audacity to create the group Les Amazones d'Avignon in 2019, a group of radical feminist activists who are not afraid to confront sexist violence, the industries of sexual exploitation, and new ideological injunction. A group that exists, organizes, acts, and refuses to bow down. A group that was present every single day at the trial of the 51 rapists of Gisèle Pellicot, which took place here in Avignon from September to December, and during which we demonstrated what it means to be a feminist, fighting relentlessly, supporting the victim in court every day, every single day I was there, and putting up slogans in the streets to support her every night. We are not in the plush silence of power. We are in the streets, on the walls, in the actions. Maybe that's the real problem. We are visible. And visible women scare people. I was there because feminism is not Instagram posts on social medias. It's actions. It's women standing tall while others try to make them fall. It's the persistent, sometimes silent, but always powerful presence alongside those who are being erased. I have never seen the authors of this letter, either in the court lobby or on the support benches, neither outside nor inside. Where courage was needed, there were only absentees. So yes, it's a lot of audacity, a lot of free speech, a lot of militant sisterhood, and apparently that's too much for some. Because it's not debate they want, it's silence. Yours, mine, ours. They want a well-behaved feminism, one that stays quiet when told women don't exist. They want us to applaud while our rights, our words, our struggles are erased. But I'm not here to please. I'm here to fight. That's why I am being harassed. What they want is to silence me. What they cannot stand is that I speak, that I think, that I fight, and that I do so without shame. And since they cannot attack me head-on on the substance, they send an anonymous letter to my employer. 5 years after an article published in a magazine trying to hit me where it hurts my professional life. Because that's always the target of violence against women, their autonomy, their independence. This harassment is not isolated. It's a part of a much larger climate where all gender-critical feminists are watched, hunted, defamed, threatened. We are insulted, excluded from activist spaces, censored on social media, accused of the worst intentions. They do not debate with us. They criminalize us. Personally, I was excluded from the association where I was active, Oser le Féminisme, for speaking out publicly on this topic. What's quite ironic in this story is that Oser le Féminisme is gender critical, but the women who now run the organization are so afraid of trans activists that they prefer to attack their most vocal activists to silence them and avoid attracting the wrath of these men who want to be better women than we are. In other words, complicity to be spared. The famous right-wing women of the working. This climate of ideological harassment has profound consequences on freedom of speech, on the professional and personal lives of the women involved, but also on society as a whole. Because what is at stake here is not only the fate of one activist or group, it is the very possibility of debating, thinking, and building a society where pluralism and disagreement can coexist. The fear of denunciation, many women activists and intellectuals choose not to express themselves publicly on these issues anymore. They censor themselves, withdraw from social networks, avoid debates, and refuse invitations. It's no coincidence that most critical gender pieces today are published under pseudonyms or signed collectively to dilute responsibility and avoid retaliation. This climate of fear and censorship has a deleterious effect on feminist thought itself. It impoverishes the debate, forbids nuance, and freezes positions. It turns disagreements into existential conflicts, divergence into betrayals, and criticisms into aggressions. It prevents the construction of a living, pluralistic feminism, one that can renew itself and adapt to the challenges of the time. But it has also concrete, material consequences on the lives of the women affected. Threats, insults, defamation campaigns, pressure on employers, exclusions from associations, family or friendly breakups. The price to pay for daring to think differently is often very high. Many women have lost their jobs, their networks, their mental health, their safety. Some have had to move, change jobs, give up activism. Others keep going, but at what price? This harassment is not just the work of a few isolated individuals or radical groups. It is relayed, amplified, and legitimized by institutions, media, political parties, unions, and associations. It's a part of a broader movement of repression against dissenting thoughts, ideological normalization, and social control. And in the long run, it threatens the very possibility of a lively and pluralistic democracy. What I am defending here and now is not just only my own case, or even that of gender critical feminists. It's the very possibility of thinking, debating, and existing politically as women. I refuse to remain silent in the face of intimidation and censorship. It's not a piece of writing that disturbs them, but the fact that women continue to fight, to speak, to think, and no one can take that away from us. I want to say to all those who recognize themselves in this fight, to all those who hesitate, who doubt, who are afraid, you are not alone. We are many, we are strong, we are legitimate. We have the right to ask questions, to defend our rights, to refuse absurd demands or intimidation. We have the right to exist, to speak, to fight, to dream of a more just, more free, more equal world. I also want to remind those who sometimes out of fear, conformity, or weariness remain silent or turn away. Silence is never neutral. It always benefits the powerful, the oppressors, the censors. Daring to speak, daring to resist, daring to disobey is already a victory. It's the condition for any emancipation, for all social transformation. Finally, I want to affirm with strength and serenity that freedom of speech is non-negotiable. It's a condition for all democratic life, all progress, all justice. It must be defended every day through speech, writing, and collective actions. This is what I am doing today and now, and this is what I will continue to do, whatever the cost. Thank you for your attention, for your listening, for your solidarity. Dear sisters, let's keep fighting, thinking, and speaking for us and for all.
Can you tell us about your podcast, Blandine?
I created with a few other feminists, but now I am alone. In maybe it was 3 years ago, probably 3 years ago. And my podcast is a way to, to make an archive and to make women be heard. So we only give the microphone to women. It's women only, even too. Women who have been touched by gender identity, whatever the problem is. It can be the transitioners, mothers, teachers. Sometimes it's women in sport, or so. I have heard hundreds of women with this podcast, and I have published 105 testimonies that are available in French on our YouTube channel. You can hear them. And we have everything is written too, because I think there are 3 aims. The first is that we are being silenced, so it's a way for women to be able to speak. And the other thing is that what they have to say, what we have to say, has to be heard, and it's very useful. I have had many people writing me, parents, for example, or women that decided to go back when they heard what they heard,
Yeah.
because you have to hear the truth, Yeah. So we live in such, like a second dimension, not the reality. So in my podcast, it's a reality.